By 1789, Marie Antoinette's popularity was at an all-time low. The previous winter had been so cold the Seine froze over, and a bad harvest meant there wasn't enough bread. To many, the court, and particularly the foreign-born queen, symbolised all that was wrong with the country. On July the 14th, an angry mob stormed the Bastille prison, which had become a symbol of royal dictatorial rule. The French Revolution had begun. Marie Antoinette spent the last 9 weeks of her life here at the Conciergerie, a medieval palace turned prison, where she was completely stripped of her royal prestige and was known as the Widow Capet. In strict mourning for her husband, Louis XVI, beheaded some months earlier, the Queen, who had railed against the lack of privacy at the French court, was under constant surveillance. I'm here to meet historian Andrew Hussey to find out more about Marie Antoinette's last days. So we're here in what I think is quite a beautiful room. It's a chapel of remembrance, but it's on the site of the cell that Marie Antoinette was held in for the last 9 weeks of her life. Do we know anything about her state of mind while she was here?
We know that she came here in the early hours of August the 2nd, 1793. And a bit like now, there was a heat wave in Paris, and it was famously sweltering when she got to this cell. And she arrived about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I think probably in 21st century terms, we would say she was in deep shock and trauma, and she never really recovered from that.
What would her life here have been like?
Do you know what? It's hard to imagine a sharper difference between life at Versailles, which was the big society of the spectacle, the great open spaces, the great mise en scène, the fête galante, you know, all these big parties they had and all of this, orgies and all that kind of thing, to this claustrophobic, sweltering, nightmarish scene out of Kafka. But the two are interlinked. And in some ways, without being too clever about it, this is the direct contrast that links the society of spectacle on both sides. Because here now, she becomes a celebrity criminal.
How much did her love of fashion, her love of novelty and luxury, how big a part did that play in her downfall?
I don't think Marie Antoinette was guileless. She wasn't a stupid woman, and she knew what she was doing. And what she was doing was pursuing an aesthetic life rather than a political life. The problem was, in France at that time, anything you did was political. So she was, as it were, caught in a trap that whatever she did, she was going to be judged on how she looked, how she performed, and so on. So the fashion side of it wasn't the ditzy Austrian queen of legend, but it was always going to be portrayed in terms of decadence, in terms of the dangers of absolutism. Now, the famous misquote, "Let them eat cake," how true is this version of Marie Antoinette that we have? I think on both sides of the channel, particularly in Britain, actually, we've got this carry on, don't lose your head, version of Blue Peter version of Marie Antoinette. And it's not true. She was a real woman who was really killed. And she was killed just down the road in Place de la Concorde, in a city that was full of febrile revolutionaries. And where, as late as the early 19th century, animals would not cross the bridge over to Place de la Concorde because the stench of blood under the pave was so powerful. And I think we forget, that this was a city that had become a slaughterhouse. It was full of killers, and it was full of the rabid, ferocious, murderous energy that goes with a great, massive political upheaval. And she was the woman who lost her life. And she started losing it here in this cell in the heat wave in August. On October the 16th, 1793, Marie Antoinette shed her widow's weeds and slipped on a white chemise she'd managed to keep hidden from the guards, over which she wore a simple white dress and went to meet her death. Crowds lining the streets were stunned into silence when confronted by this modest, spectral figure, her prematurely white hair matching her carefully chosen clothes. And so Marie Antoinette saved her most powerful fashion statement for last.